If you're currently looking for a job or you're trying to find any work in the corporate space, you need to have a resume that actually works. And that is why in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to actually write a resume that will get you jobs, even if you've never written your resume before. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Gloria and let's get to it. When you are looking at job roles, you have to apply for the right job that actually fits your skill set and is able to cater for the expenses you have as an individual, because nothing is cheap nowadays, at least that we can agree on. So the first thing you need to understand is the salary range. So look in detail, what is the market rate for that particular role. Also look at the jobs you're applying to, what are their compensation terms, and then also have conversations with people around you who are working in that role you're trying to apply to, so that you get a better understanding of what is the salary range for that particular role. Then the second thing that you need to look into is the market demand. Is this role actually in market demand, or are you just applying for a role that has been oversaturated with people who have the same level of skill set? Because you have to be strategic, especially when it comes to corporate. People are not just going to hire you because you qualify for that particular role. You can actually utilize the skill set that you have from a different role to look for different roles in corporate. If the role you're currently seeking is very saturated and there is no way to penetrate the market. And then the third thing is the skill set required, because every job role has a different skill set that they require, so that you can be able to perform extremely well in your role and you can be able to deliver good results to the company that you're going to work under. So it is very vital you understand the job role and the job description, so that you apply for the jobs that you actually qualify for. And then the other thing that you have to do is you have to get clarity on what is the terms of locations for the jobs you actually want to work for. Because in this day and age, there are actually three sets of locations that you can get to work in. You can either work remotely, which means you're working from home. You can either work in premise, whereby you have to commute to the office every single day or every single work day. And then the third one is both, where you get to do half of the week in a premises and half of the week working from home. So you have to really distinguish, or you have to really determine what you're really looking for in terms of location, because at the end of the day, location does actually determine how you're going to apply for jobs, especially in corporate. So you need to ensure that you are optimizing for the right kind of location that you are looking for. Because I do know if it's remote, then you need to have a portfolio, you need to have a resume, you need to have a cover letter, and of course you need to optimize your LinkedIn profile, because all these things are required during your application process. But then when it comes to the in-premise, you really need to have a good resume, a good cover letter, as well as a portfolio. The next step is to actually understand the psychology of the corporate market, and that starts with you getting to finally understand who is in charge, or who actually has the opportunities that you are looking for in corporate. And based on my experience, there are actually three people who you actually need to be in close ties with. And the first group of people are the founders and CEO. These are the people who actually do the high level operations of a business or a company, and they are able to distinguish or find where there's a gap, and they can be able to help you see, or they can be able to help you find the role you're looking for in a company or in a place you actually want to work for, because they are the one who hold all the cards on whether someone is going to get hired or not. The second group of people are going to be recruiters. That's because recruiters usually hold all the cards, especially when companies have tried to hire, but in their own working relationship they weren't able to hire right, and they needed some help. They usually run to recruiters. And so you need to have at least a relationship with some recruiters, so that they can refer you to the jobs that you're currently seeking or the companies that you want to work for, because they are going to help you understand what is missing in your application process and help you throughout the entire recruitment process. And then the third group of people that you need to really pay attention to are going to be hiring managers and HR, human resource professionals, because these people are usually the people who are in charge of hiring talent in a specific company or even in a specific group or setting, because these are the people that a lot of CEOs and a lot of founders are going to rely on when it comes to talent and how they're going to manage their talent in the company. So you need to ensure that at least you know some HRs, some hiring managers who can be able to help you in the process of your application. Then the next thing that goes into psychology is understanding what the company is looking to do and how you play a part, or how you can play a part in helping them do what they want to do. Now, here's the thing. Every company exists for a reason, whether they're a non-profit or a for-profit company. They have a mission, they have a vision, and so you need to understand what their mission is, what their vision is, and what they're currently struggling with, that you can be able to actually solve for them so that they get a step closer towards their mission, vision, and what they want to achieve. That is the second most important part when it comes to your resume, because a lot of companies are not going to look at your skill set. They're going to look at whether or not you can help them achieve what they want to achieve. And that should be your cue. That should be the message you're communicating through your resume to the people who are hiring, because they want to know that you're there to serve them, that you're there to advance their agenda. Because you need to understand that a lot of companies are looking at whether or not you can be able to add value to what they're trying to do and help them get closer to their goal. And then the other thing that goes into psychology is your communication style, because you need to be communicating that you're there to serve. And I know a lot of us do not actually look at it in that direction, but you're supposed to write your resume in a way that communicates that you're the missing piece in whatever it is they're trying to do. And how you actually do that is by highlighting the impact and the value that you've brought to the previous roles or the previous projects and companies you've been able to work with. So you need to be quoting numbers, and don't exaggerate these numbers. A lot of people usually exaggerate the numbers, but try as best as possible to keep it neutral, keep it a number that's actually manageable, because when you get into the interview process, they are going to follow up with the numbers, with the impact and the value that you've communicated you're going to bring to that particular company. And of course, we want to make a good first impression, and the best way to make a good impression or a good first impression is by making people understand the value that you bring and the impact that you are going to bring when you get hired in their company. The next thing is copywriting, and the first tip that I have for you guys is that you need to have or understand the structure at which you're going to write your resume, because in the corporate space, there are 3 types of resumes, honestly, and you need to understand what you're going to start with. Because if you're starting to work remotely, then a modern CV is not going to work for you. If you're starting to work at a research institution, then a resume is not going to work for you, but a curriculum vitae will. And let me explain the difference. Now, first things first is that you need to understand that there is something called an application tracking system, and this application tracking system usually does the screening or the first set of screening when it comes to applications, especially remote listed applications. So that usually follows the structure of top down, because there is a software or a computer generated program that is going to go through each and everything you've indicated in that particular resume, and a modern CV is not gonna cut it because of too much formatting. And of course, computers are stupid. I know this because I've been in tech, and computers usually do what they're told to do. So the top-down approach is usually what works, because the computer can be able to scan it and understand whatever you've indicated on your resume. Then the second piece of resume is usually called a modern CV. Now, a modern CV is usually formatted for human readability, because the person who's going to go through your modern resume is going to be a recruiter or even the person who's hiring, and you want to make it as easy as possible for them to understand what you're talking about without giving too much distraction and without making it too boring, so that they can be able to understand what you're trying to communicate or the message you're trying to relay. And then the third one, or the third important document that we have in the recruitment space, is your curriculum vitae. Now, your curriculum vitae is supposed to hold the history of everything you've ever done from your educational background to the point you are at right now. Your CV is supposed to be a lot of pages, I'm not gonna lie. It holds your professional history, therefore it expands the more you continue to gain more experience in corporate. The next thing is to actually copyright or add the details that you want to communicate. Now that requires a framework, and that is where the study framework comes in, because it is a way of helping you or guiding you through the copywriting process. Now, in the study framework, S, which is the first letter, stands for a situation. You're going to indicate a situation where you've had to use your level of expertise. And then the second letter, which is T, it stands for task. You're going to outline the task that was required for you to do in that specific situation. And then A stands for the actions you took to actually accomplish the tasks that were indicated for that particular situation. And then you are going to indicate the results you got, which is R, the next letter. These results are going to be indicated either in numbers or revenue or the impact that you're able to bring. And then the last letter, which is I, is going to be the impact. What was the change that actually happened, or the transformation that actually happened in that particular company? Once you are able to do the actions, you are able to complete the task, and you are able to solve the situation that you're in that company. And then the next tip I have for you guys is that you have to use your resume as real estate without wasting the time of the person who's going through it. That means your copywriting framework, or rather the way you write or indicate the description of the roles of where you are working in, have to be indicated in such a way that someone can actually understand within the shortest time possible. So that means you have, instead of using long paragraphs, you need to use 3 to 5 sentences max when it comes to the description of the role you are working in. That means you have to indicate the value you actually brought to a company, and you have to indicate the value that you are confident presenting to the person who's gonna read your resume. And then the next thing is that you need to use bullet points so that the person who's reading can actually have an easy way to follow through whatever history information you're giving them. Because the moment someone gets your resume, the first thing they're thinking about is, how can I get to read as much as I can about this person, so that when they land the interview process, I can be able to grasp enough information to check whether or not they qualify. So you need to save this person time, because even them, they have someone to report to, and everything is just working the way it works. Now, I'm hoping that you guys found this video to be helpful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you also do have any questions that you think I did not address in this particular video, do let me know in the comment section. But up to that point, thank you guys so much for watching until the end, and I am going to see you in the next one.